Let's talk about my most used art supplies that I reach for every single time I create a new artwork. And at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about what is currently on my art supply wish list. My name is Lily. I have been a high school, middle school art teacher for the last 5 years, and I also do my own art on the side as well. This is just focused on my most used supplies, so I'm not going to be covering even every category of art supplies that I use. For example, I obviously have a pencil sharpener, but I don't feel like I've tried a lot or I have the most amazing pencil sharpener, so I'm not going to mention it. I'm just going to mention the supplies that I use the most and reach for every day and love. Starting with pencils, I like to have some artist wooden pencils. These are the Staedtler Mars Lumograph pencils. They come with a range of softness or hardness of the graphite. So you can see I have 4H all the way to 6B. So 4H is going to be a much harder graphite, and then 6B is going to be softer, so it'll be darker. The softer it is, the darker it is. I'll use like a 4H or a 2H if I'm sketching, and then I have a whole range if I'm doing any type of other shading. I have a whole range of light to dark graphite that I can use. For mechanical pencils, I have this set from Nick Pro. It comes with a couple different mechanical pencils as well as lead that you can put in it. I'm not super picky about my mechanical pencils. I just like having a couple so that I don't have to sharpen the pencil, so I can like take these on the go or sketch with them. So I really liked these. All right, last I have the Prismacolor Kohl Erase pencils. These are really nice if you're wanting to do any type of sketching in color. When you sketch with colored pencils, they don't erase quite as well. These do erase a little bit better. If you like to sketch in color, these are a really nice option. I honestly don't sketch in color a ton, but I do like having these for that option. For pens, I like using micron pens. I usually have a variety of sizes. So the 005 is going to be smaller than the 03, for example. You can get a really, really fine tip or one that's a little bit thicker as well. I also use these Sharpie fine felt tip pens, which are kind of similar to the micron pens. They're a little bit cheaper. I actually got onto these because I was doing Draw a Box, and this is one of the pens they suggest, and I actually have really liked it. I just kind of repurchased these. It's a little bit cheaper, and I like using them. This is the Pitt Artist Pen in white brush, so it's basically just a white pen. I really like using this for highlights, or you can even put it down and then do a colored pencil on top of it as well. This is one of my favorites to use with colored pencils. These are the drawers that I use to store my colored pencils. I'll show the whole drawer set later in the video. So I keep them in here. I just kind of have them organized by color. I have two different kinds of colored pencils that I used. One of them is the Prismacolor Premier. I think they're the soft core colored pencils, and then I also use the Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils as well. And I used to have them separated by brand, but now I just kind of mix them all together. I honestly don't really pay attention to if I'm using my Faber-Castell or my Prismacolor ones. I really like both colored pencils. For alcohol markers, I love using my Ohuhu markers. I have a couple different sets. I really like the pastel set. That's probably what I use the most because I find some of the other sets are really lacking in pastel colors, and I just find that's mostly what I'm using anyways. Some of the ones I have the chisel tip and the fine tip, whereas other ones I have the brush and the chisel. I really like using the brush. I probably use the brush the most. The first set that I bought, I actually just bought the chisel and the fine tip because I hadn't really used them before, so I didn't really know. But I really wished I had gotten the brush tip. So little life hack for you, if you buy replacement brush tips, you can actually replace the chisel with a brush. I'll also link the replacement nibs below if you want to do that. I don't know if it's super cost effective. It's probably not, but it's an option if you're really sad that one of your colors does not have a brush tip. Next is erasers. My two favorite erasers are my kneaded eraser. Every artist obviously needs a kneaded eraser. These are the best for lightening your sketches. You can change the shape of them to just get into little areas, anything like that. I'm using my kneaded eraser every single day. And then my other favorite is this Tombow Mono Zero eraser. It's basically a mechanical pencil but an eraser. This thing is amazing. I love it. It's so nice to erase little tiny areas, to do highlights. Yeah, I don't know, you think, why would I need that? But it just comes in so handy. I mainly work in gouache. I've obviously used acrylic and oil and watercolor and all of that, but I pretty much just stick to gouache, at least for this time in my life. I really like the Holbein Artist Gouache. It's my favorite. I've tried other ones. I know the Himi gouache was really popular for a while. I know it's supposed to be student level, but I just felt like it was more transparent. I didn't like the colors as much. I would rather honestly just have a smaller set of colors that I can mix to get the colors I want. So I really like this. I have them all taken out because I clip them to my pegboard. So they're kind of messy, but these are what all of them look like. I always get an extra white one that's a larger size because I go through white like crazy. I also have the Holbein acrylic gouache. It looks like this. I also have them all with the binder clips on them to attach to my pegboard. I don't use this quite as much. Basically, it's the same general thing as normal gouache in that it dries matte and you can add water to make it more transparent, all of that, but it cannot be reactivated. So normal gouache can be reactivated, so I could put it down and then put more water down and move it around the paper. It's not like, it's never completely dry, I guess. Well, it's dry, but it can't be reactivated. I don't know how else to say that. Whereas acrylic gouache dries like acrylic paint. So once it's down, it's down. Even if you put water on top of it, it's not going to move around. That can be nice for certain circumstances. If I want to do an underpainting or something like that, I would use acrylic gouache for that. In general, I usually stick to just my normal artist gouache for my paintings. For painting, something else that I love is this drawing gum. So it's basically just a masking fluid, so you can put it down and paint over it and then peel it off after you're done painting, and it will just reveal the paper. So it's basically protecting the paper and you can paint over it. It's really nice for tiny fine details, fine highlights, edges of things, so you don't have to worry about being super particular with your painting. You can just use this drawing gum. This is my favorite paint palette. It is a ceramic palette. I got it from Amazon, but you could probably get a ceramic tray or plate from like a thrift store as well. I also like having just an open ceramic plate. I don't like having the little sections. That way I can just kind of continue my mixes on and I'm not like worried about them being in little compartments. I just work better that way. I really like this one. I used to use plastic palettes, but they would stain. They just didn't look as nice. It also has the little lip, so that is nice as well if you're using a lot of water. So I know I've talked about gouache paints, and you don't necessarily need a brush cleaner as much for gouache. Since it's water soluble, you can really easily rinse them off in the sink, but I still like having a brush cleaner. This one is really nice for oil paints as well. It's called the Masters Brush Cleaner. It has this little soap inside, and you just wet your brush and then rub it on this soap on the inside, and it really easily cleans your brush. This stuff is a lifesaver. I've used it since college, and yeah, it's great. This is my favorite watercolor paper. I just use the Canson watercolor paper. It's not very expensive, and I just really like it. I like the size of it. I like the thickness of the paper. I like the tooth of the paper. And it's just never done me wrong, and I feel like I can use it and it's not $1 million. So I love that as well. This is the Ohuhu marker pad. Obviously, it's meant just for markers. The nice thing about this is it's coated with something on the paper. I don't know what they're coating the paper with, but it makes the markers dry just a tiny bit slower. So it's a little easier to blend. And then the other thing that I like is it doesn't bleed through the paper. So I can use both sides of the paper, which I pretty much can't do in any other sketchbook I have with markers. So I really like them for that reason. This one works really well. This is a Strathmore Series 500 mixed media softcover. It's a long name. I love this one. It's a little bit of a nicer sketchbook, so I feel a little more pressure when I use it. I just did this spread in it. I had a video, actually 2 videos, one where I did this side, one where I did this side. I will link that if you want to watch those videos, but I love this paper. I feel like I can use all different types of media in it. I can paint with gouache in it. I can do colored pencils, alcohol markers, everything. The alcohol markers do bleed through on here, but that's okay. I really, really like using this one. I also like that it doesn't have a spiral in the middle. Okay, yeah, you can see how my alcohol markers bled through here. I like that it doesn't have a spiral in the middle, so if I want to do a full spread across both pages, I can do that as well. I also like having a toned paper sketchbook, whether it's gray paper or tan paper. So this is the Strathmore toned tan paper. It's just a smaller one. I don't do like tons of finished artworks with toned paper, but I do really like using it. So this is just kind kind of a nice option to have as well. The last sketchbook has nothing to do with this specific brand or anything. It's just the fact that I love having a sketchbook from the grocery store. So this is a sketchbook I got from Kroger. It's like $2. I just like having one that is super cheap that I can do whatever ugly stuff in here and no one will ever see it. This one, not particular to this brand, but I encourage you, go get the cheapest sketchbook you can find with the crappiest paper and just have it in case you need it. I do a mix of digital and traditional art. So for my digital art, I use Procreate. I have an iPad Pro, I think it's the 11-inch, and second generation Apple Pencil. It's obviously a bit expensive to invest in it in the first place, but once you have Procreate, Apple Pencil, and the iPad, you can do so much stuff. I love using them. I also have a cover on my iPad. I think it's called either Paper Feel or Paper Like. It's basically a screen cover on top of my iPad that has a little bit of a texture to it, so it feels a little bit more like paper. Obviously not completely like paper, but it has a little bit of resistance, so it feels not quite as much like you're just drawing on a glass screen. That really helps me. Anyone else that started as a traditional artist and is now working digitally, I would highly suggest getting that as well. I also like using this little bamboo holder for my iPad. You can use it with your phone as well. I like to have a reference photo up on my phone or on my iPad, so I just use this to prop it up while I'm working. This is one of my favorite storage items from Meeden. I keep all of my pens and pencils in here, and I love the drawers and all the little compartments. I have the Epson Perfection V600 photo scanner that I use to scan all of my artworks, and I love the quality of the scan. For my art supply wish list, I always have a long running wish list of art supplies that I want to try. First one is the Holbein pastel colored pencil set. It's pretty pricey. I think it's 50 colored pencils for like $180 or something crazy like that, but they look so nice. I've seen so many people use them, so I really want to try those. Next is the Blackwing pencils. This is another one that's very pricey for a pencil, but specifically I want to try the matte black one. I've heard that they're the best pencils to use, and the black one specifically, you can get really dark marks while still being able to erase, so I want to give those a try as well. I don't really use a lot of oil pastels. I have pastels, but they're more student grade, so I want to try some nicer quality pastels. Specifically, the two I want to try is the Sennelier and the Caran d'Ache Neocolor pastels. I think I pronounced those correctly. I think they're both French. I really want to give those a try as well. They look so buttery and creamy and nice. Next is Aquaboard watercolor panels. So since I mainly work in gouache, I don't really use oil and acrylic very much. I don't really work on canvas. Aquaboard is basically just watercolor paper on, I think, wood board. So it's kind of the same idea as a canvas. I feel like it'd be really nice to be able to mount my artwork or work on something a little more sturdy when I'm painting, so I would be curious to try those as well. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you saw some new supplies that you want to try out. Comment below any supplies that you think I might like, or if you've tried any of the items on my wish list. I really want to hear what you think about them.